there probably isn't just one definition for addiction. Maybe there are different definitions out there, but it seems that in spite of the various definitions, addiction is something that affects all societies, and it may vary. In some cases, it may be alcohol, it may be some kind of other drug, it may be eating, it may be sports. People could get addicted to studying, and they do it to the point that it affects family relationships, it affects their health. People can get addicted to their businesses or business. So any destructive habits that a person finds themselves doing again and again, finding it difficult to quit, finding that if they don't do it, they don't feel good about themselves, uh, that could possibly be an addiction. But as I stated, there are many definitions out there. But today I want to talk about addictions that a number of our children are experiencing, children and teenagers, especially those who are in school. During the pandemic, what you find happening is that a number of kids were just isolated, they were inside. Online schooling was something that a number of them were doing. But because children were inside and the easy availability of video games, a number of children started to find themselves playing more and more. So video game addiction seems to be very much so on the rise as children try to cope. They try to socialize through the use of these games, as some of them may communicate with each other while playing, or they may communicate with the game themselves or itself. They try to reach particular levels or specific levels, and they find themselves not feeling good about themselves if they don't play the game. They find it difficult to stop playing. They might become aggressive if you take away their video games from them. They may not eat on time. They may not sleep the specific or required number of hours for their age because they are playing the game. They may start to behave or think like some of the characters in the games. They may start visualizing themselves as one of the characters or character. And as a parent or a guardian, you can be concerned, and you should be concerned, especially if the games are affecting their schoolwork. So they can spend hours and hours and hours on video games or playing video games. But when they sit down to do their schoolwork, that is a challenge. They find it very difficult to actually sit down and do schoolwork. So they might be able to do schoolwork for probably half an hour if they're able to focus or concentrate or are motivated for the half of an hour. But they can play video games for 5 or more hours. So some parents are saying it's very difficult to actually have their kids focus or do schoolwork or concentrate without asking to play the game. And sometimes the child may even want to trade. They say, if I study for half an hour, could I play for an hour? So the question therefore is, how can we help a child who might become addicted to video games? Well, one of the things is that you have to think in terms of how can you reduce? So you have to approach it from the standpoint of this is an addiction, and how do you reduce a child number of hours playing without significantly harming the child emotionally or mentally? Because try taking a person off a specific drug that they are very addicted to, and it can affect their behavior. They can become very moody, aggressive. They can throw tantrums, lash out at other people. They can start experiencing physical ailments such as headaches, neck pains. belly pains, heart palpitations. So how do you do it? Well, it's not easy, and in some cases, a parent or a guardian may have to actually get professional help. But one of the things you can do is, one, you set time limits. So the child has, let's say, each day half of an hour to play the video game for. You sit and talk with the child so they know beforehand they only have half an hour. So wherever they reach in the game, half an hour, they start wrapping up. To help the child too, you can set a timer. So you have an alarm clock or something next to them and it's ticking away. And when the time strikes, then the game should stop or should end. You also want to encourage the child, secondly, to do other activities. So it's nice to play football on a handheld device, but it's another thing to probably among the family members, because it may be that because of the pandemic, persons are not able to, they have to distance themselves. So physical distancing. So playing football might be a difficult thing. However, the family could play football. So maybe as the mom or the dad, they don't love football, but the child does. So you might have to start allocating specific time to actually play a game of football with the child. Now the child will appreciate that, even the teenager will appreciate that. They know you really can't play as good as they can, but at least you're just going out on the field with them or the backyard, and just kicking the ball, tossing it around, or play with basketball, or even ask them to show you how to do it. It's a good opportunity for children and parents to bond. So get involved, show interest in the child and what they want to do in terms of getting them physically active. Because one thing we don't want coming out from the pandemic and the isolation is that, one, children are addicted to video games. They feel a sense of alone, and then diabetes step in because they're not physically active. So we want to curtail that as best as possible. A third thing you can do with the child is to set a schedule. So it's one thing to just say to the child, you know what, half an hour video games and then go and take a book. But if there's a schedule in the house, so the child knows half an hour for video games, 2 hours for study and homework, and you could determine based on the child's age, of course, how much studying they should do. You break it up too, so you don't have the child just sit there for 2 hours. Most adults can't even do that, sit for 2 hours straight and focus on a task, unless it's something that they're really interested in. Some parents may say, but how they can focus on video games but they can't focus on their homework? Well, you see, video games is instant reward. So the brain, it enjoys novelty, it also enjoys instant rewards. So what you find happening is that there might be hormones in the body, such as serotonin, that is associated with happiness. And if the child consistently is playing video games, and serotonin is something that is produced in the body, and it makes the child feel happy, then obviously the child is going to do that again and again. But if it is that the child has to sit down and do homework, you solve 10 maths problem. But the truth is, for some children, that does absolutely nothing. I mean, you just solve the problem, that's it. And then what? Do you get a prize? Do you move to another level? Well, you might move to another level. That is, if you were in grade 1 or grade 2 or form 1 or form 2, then you move up to another form. But that is not going to happen at the end of completing the mathematics problem. That is going to happen at the end of 3 terms or at the end of 1 year. So that is very long to wait to get some kind of reward. But with the video games, it's instant reward. So if a child had to choose between video games and waiting a whole year to move up another level and doing some schoolwork in order to do that, I think it's obvious that most children will choose video games. So having that schedule of, okay, this is what you have to do at this particular time, and if you do this, this is when the reward system comes in. If you do this, then you are able to get that. So if you are able to study for the 2 hours, maybe breaking it up into 20-minute Pomodoro technique, 20 minutes, 5-minute rest, 20 minutes, 5-minute rest, 20 minutes until you make it 2 hours, and you're able to play video games for just half of an hour per day or less, then this is what I will give to you. You will have an extra opportunity to talk to your friends on the cell phone. You will have an extra opportunity, maybe 10 extra minutes added on to you being on social media at the end of the week or on weekends, 10 minutes added on. Or for younger children, you might get 2 thumbs up, or you may have on the wall a token system where if they perform a particular task, you put a tick. So if they perform well for these particular tasks, they studied and they play video games the required time that you suggest to them, you put a tick. And at the end of the week, you add up all the ticks. So at the end of maybe a week is good. Don't go for a month, because a month might be too long and it's too drawn out. Some children, they become bored and they just give up. So maybe at the end of the week, there's something to give them. Maybe it's ice cream, or it's cake, or it's something that the child may like and that you could agree upon that giving them this will not harm them in any way. Of course, some people, they may say, well, why should the child get a reward for doing something that I tell them to do? It's an okay argument, but there are plenty things as an adult. For example, if you're working, your boss may tell you to do, and you don't like doing it. But you know that there's a reward at the end of the month, or at the end of the fortnight, or at the end of the week. That's your salary, your pay. So you don't like it, but you do it, and you develop a routine of going to work or showing up, even though it might be something that you don't really like doing, but it pays the bills. So for the child, their salary, might be what you give them in terms of the reward that they work towards. So the extra time, the ice cream, the cake, a little extra time on social media or talking to their friends, once they perform all the specific tasks that you have given to them, might just be what they need in order to develop a level of automaticity and or routine, so that they will do the specific task again and again and again, and do it in such a way that eventually the addiction that they have to the video games will just go away or cease significantly. Now the objective is clear. Once a child is not addicted to video games, then they will be more productive to do other things. And sometimes the long-term effect is, once you can get them to develop self-control, it becomes easier as they grow to demonstrate self-control in various other areas, because they will need to demonstrate self-control throughout life. So helping them as early as possible to develop self-control, or the ability to self-regulate, stop and think before they act, cease engaging in an activity to do something else without feeling that if they stop this activity, they feel sad, they feel anxious. But helping them to see that you can stop a specific activity, do something else, and still feel good about yourself. So that's the objective of reducing video games addiction in children. So I hope this video was helpful. Like, subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and share it with at least 1 or 2 persons that you may know that can benefit from this information. So until then, take care.